Hi, my name is Bella Carrasco, and helping others feel confident about investing brings a huge smile to my face. After working in the private equity, family office, and securities markets for nearly a decade, I am breaking down the world of money, investing, and financial freedom. Work optionality isn't a dream, it's a decision you make today. I bring you actionable tips, expert interviews, and enlightening strategies to help you get richer and stay that way. This is the How Do You Know podcast. And this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please consult with a qualified financial professional for advice specific to your situation. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast producers or sponsors. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy or completeness of the content. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Matt Kepnes, the legendary author of the Nomadic Matt travel blog, who has also written bestsellers like How to Travel the World on $75 a Day. I want to dive deep into his insider hacks for stacking credit card points to fund these epic adventures and outsmarting airline fees without breaking the bank. So, Matt, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I know that even at dinner the other night, we were talking about how to maximize the points that you get from the different credit cards. So I feel like the natural question is which portal between Amex, Chase, all the other ones out there has the best bang for your buck in terms of conversion and options. And I think the answer to that question might actually surprise folks in terms of how you're supposed to transfer points and et cetera. But I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of people's biggest mistakes is that they book in the portal, and that's something I get emails with all the time, where people will be like, well, it's just not worth it. I have these 100,000 points, and it gets me like 2 flights, or like 1 flight, because you're booking in the portal. But, you should never really book in the portal. You should always transfer your points to the company directly, because you'll get much more value per point than, that way. Like, for example, like, you get Capital One, right? You have 100,000 points, that's $1,000. So, maybe that's like 2 round trip tickets on economy, but you transfer that over to, especially if they're doing a sign up like a transfer bonus to say KLM Air France, just at this random example, right? So now you have 100,000 Flying Blue Air France points. Flying Blue is the name of their program. And you can get points for as little as 12,000. You can get flights for as little as 12,000 points one way in economy. So now you've gone from 2 round tickets in economy to 7 or 8. So it's a lot better value than just 2. And then if you learn, that can be 1 round trip business class flight, right? You're not going to get a business class flight for $1,000, but so I save my redemptions for business class flights because I fly so often. But I'd rather round trip business class than 2 round trip economies. But point being is that transferring them out of the portals gets you a lot better value. The only time I would say that it's good to use your points within the portals is for non-branded hotels that are inexpensive. For example, you're going to a little town in Peru and there's no Hyatt, Marriott, or whatever, right? But you don't want to spend $200 for a ticket. Yeah, book within the portal and you redeem your points as cash, right? So like 20,000 points is $200. A hotel is probably going to cost you 20,000 points anyway. So for me, like, using points for hotel redemptions when there's no transfer opportunity is a good value redemption.
Sure. Okay. Got it.
Speaking of value is really in the eye of the beholder. You go online and find all these point blogs that will tell you Chase points is worth 1.75 cents, or Built is 2.1, or whatever they decide that month. It's a really arbitrary number. For me, like, Delta points are worthless because I get so many of them. Same like Chase, because like Chase is my business card, so I get a lot of Chase points per month. Whereas like I don't have a lot of access to American Airlines points, and so like I sparingly use those points because they are more valued to me because they are hard to get. Same with Built. And so, when you're redeem because you want to save money. Like that's where the value comes in. Like, yeah, okay, maybe some blogger will tell you like the math doesn't work out on this redemption, as great as another redemption. But what's the best value is when you need to use those points, that's when they're worth the most.
That's a really good point that I'm certain people don't consider. And when you're looking at the different credit cards, do you find that most of them can transfer to most airlines and hotels, or is that something to pay attention to when choosing a credit card?
Yeah, there's a good Venn diagram where, if you list all the partners, like there's a lot of overlap. Like everyone transfers to Virgin, Flying Blue, and Air Canada, and Singapore, and, IHG. But then, Chase is the only one you're going to get United. Chase and Bilt are the only United Hyatt partners. Delta is exclusive with Amex. Citi is the only one for American Airlines. There are, which is the only one for Alaska. So like each program has some that are unique to them. And so when you're thinking about what card to get, I think, that is important to look at all the transfer partners and go, do I use these companies?
Yeah.
I heavily use Chase because I really only like to stay at Hyatt hotels. And so I often will transfer Chase to Hyatt. And so I want a lot of Chase points because I can't get them elsewhere, like Hyatt really much elsewhere. Whereas like Air France, it doesn't really matter. Everyone transfers to Air France.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And if you're a United fan, then you might need to consider a Chase credit card.
Exactly.
What about in terms of timeline? How long does it typically take to transfer points so that you can then book a flight? Because something that would give me anxiety is seeing, okay, this flight is 5,000 points today, but what if in a couple days that 5,000 point flight increases to 10,000?
Yeah, I mean, this is something when we booked your trip to Japan, you were worried about points. They'll tell you it can take up to 48 hours or it can take up to a week depending on the transfer partner. But really, it's pretty instant across the board right now. I think the Singapore Airlines does take a few days, but like Virgin, KLM, United, Hyatt, all that stuff, Alaska, it's pretty instantaneous.
Nice.
And so like if you see one, transfer and book, like, and because of the way airlines price rewards, it's not going to really jump. There's like two reward levels, or saver and regular. And so, for example, a saver reward ticket on Air France is like 50, 60,000 business class. And then like the normal one can be like whatever they want, from like 110,000 to 500,000 points. But like if you see a saver and you transfer your points, it's still going to be there in the next 5-10 minutes, unless somebody else books. It's not going to jump points because of the airline. It's going to jump because somebody booked the saver. But very rarely is that sort of like, by the time you transfer points, it's gone.
Okay. That's good to know. That is a very useful hack for me. Aside from the actual partner or transfer partners, what are good questions for people to ask themselves when they're choosing a card?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what's your goal. I could put in front of you right now like 5 or 6 cards that have amazing sign-up bonuses, upwards of 200,000 points each. Are you going to use the perks of the card to justify? And like, do you need those transfer partners, right? Like, you sign up for that Amex Platinum, it's $895, right? You can get up to 200,000 points right now. And Amex has some great transfer partners, but like if you're a United person, Amex isn't going to really help you, right? And or for example, if your goal is you really want to stay at a bunch of Hyatt hotels, Amex isn't going to help you, or if you need hotel points in general, the transfer partners don't have a lot of good hotels bonuses, because like Marriott, Hilton, like they charge such a astronomical amount of money per reward. You want to get their hotel card. So I would say like, what is your goal? Who do you want to fly, right? Like if you're like, we're going to Japan and we've always wanted to fly Japan Airlines business or whatever, like you're going to want to get a Citi card or an American Airlines card because they have the best redemptions, or Alaska because Alaska has good redemptions on Japan Airlines. So I always say start with your goal and then find the car that matches your goal.
Got it. And I just want to give you 3 different goals: rent, groceries, and dining and travel. So if you really like dining and travel, what, in your opinion, is the best card?
Probably the Amex Gold, because you get 3x on your top category spend. So, this is kind of where you want to get, you think about point value in goals, right? Like speaking of rent, you want a Bilt card. Bilt gives you points on rent.
Yeah.
And that comes with like 2x on dining, and they have like category bonuses. But you could also then get the Amex Gold, and you get 3x on dining, right? There's some cards that give you 8x on points for groceries. If you do online shopping, which you can order within the app, and then from the app go pick up, and you get that counts as an online grocery. Whereas if you go in store, that's like you're not going to get that bonus, right? So you never want to spread yourself out too thin on the cards. So like you don't want to be spending on 5 or 6 cards. You want to try to concentrate on 1, 2, ideally 3 maximum. And so that's where having a couple of cards comes in handy, because you could do rent on 1 card, dining on another, travel on another.
I was going to ask because I know a lot of places, especially overseas, do not take Amex. So even though Amex Gold might be great, it's also good to have a backup card. So I was going to ask how many cards people should focus on, but it sounds like 2 or 3 is the sweet spot.
Yeah. For me, since so much of my business is on Chase, like a lot of my personal is on Bilt or Amex as a way to have those points across different platforms. But again, there's a good overlap between partners. But you don't want to do like Bilt to Chase a Capital One and an Amex across the board, because it just becomes too complicated. And you spread yourself out too thin.
Right. Yeah. Then it becomes way too hard for everything.
Right. Because like a normal person, like I have business expenses, right? But a normal person doesn't have that, right? So like if you're just putting a few $1,000s a month on a credit card, you don't want to spread that $1,000 up like 500. You want to focus. So the less you spend, the fewer cards you should be spending on, because otherwise will just take forever to build up points.
Oh, that's very true. And something else that has come up a lot recently is this new Chase Sapphire $800 credit card. So in the way that I'm approaching it is maybe trying to calculate how much my rewards might be. Do you have a good way to calculate whether or not an annual fee on a credit card is worth it?
Yeah, I just think about, with these high value, they're basically like coupon books at this point. The Chase, the Capital One Venture X is probably the most simple travel card out there. And $5, $300 back, plus lounge access, TSA pre, and a few other travel perks, priority pass lounge. And so it's like a really simple, easy to use 2x points on your spending. But these other cards, it's like the MX will say, you get $3,500 in value every year for it. But so like they're treating it like a coupon book. And so in the first year, it's always worth it because you get the sign-up bonus. And then they always give you like Uber credits and Lyft credits and dining credits. So it's always worth it in the first year. But when it comes to, do you keep this card and continue to pay $800 a year? It's really just like, do you use that credit? For example, the Amex Personal, now you have an Oura Ring credit. Well, that's only good once unless you're buying an Oura Ring every year. You have Equinox credit. Well, what if you don't live on Equinox? There's Lulu. You get $75 at Lululemon every quarter. I don't shop, right? So it is not always like, for me, I look at the credits and like, am I using all of this? And if the answer is no, you got to think about that. First year always great because you're getting the sign-up bonus, but second, third year, it's really just about, do you use the credits? I mean, if you use the credits and they kind of match the the fee, sure, then it's worth it because you're spending $800, you're getting 800 because all these things come with lounges and point multipliers that if you're wiping the fee off in the credits, yeah, that's good.
Right.
But you don't also want to use credits just for the sake of using credits, right? Like I could go use these Lululemon credits and I'll get $300 in value, but like I wouldn't do that normally. So like it's not really saving me money because like I went to spend that money in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't let the tax or the credits wag the dog, so to speak.
Yeah, like if you're not it's not saving you money if you weren't going to spend that money in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the bonuses when you sign up, how do you sign up for a new card without hurting your credit if you're no longer using a different card?
Well, a credit score is meant to be used, right? And people get too worried about, oh my God, it's going to hurt my credit score. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, you built up a credit score for a reason. Now, I mean, if you're buying a house in the next 6 months, like would I go sign up for a bunch of credit cards? No. But like, if you don't have a goal of buying a house in the next 6 months, your credit score should be used, and that should be used in getting new cards. In terms of saving on the fees, just cancel it. I will always call and say, hey, I'm thinking of canceling it. And usually they'll give you a bonus. They'll be like, oh, if you spend like $5, no, I mean, that's an extreme example. If you spend $1,000 or whatever, we'll give you all these points. And you think, okay, is those extra points worth the yearly fee? There might be a no fee version of the card you can transfer down to. For example, like a lot of Chase Reserve cards, you can downgrade to a Chase Freedom, and that doesn't hurt your credit. But the thing that really hurts your credit is the loss of a credit line. And so if you have a bunch of cards and you can't downgrade to a no fee card, try to transfer that credit to another card if you have it with that bank. For example, I have a bunch of Chase cards, and every year I like kind of go through and like, is that something? Is that? So when I cancel the card, I always ask, can you transfer the credit line of this card to this other Chase card I have? And that really does a lot to preserve your credit score because you're keeping the same credit limit. And what really hurts your score is when you lose the credit line and it lowers your overall credit limit. But if the card is closed but the credit limit remains the same, there's not really that much of a ding on your credit score. Again, even if you cancel, you'll get a temporary ding. After a few months, it will go away. So it's really like, I never really think about it. But again, I'm not buying a house in the next 6 months. If you're buying a house in the next 6 months, then you kind of want to make sure that, your credit score is the best it could be going into your mortgage application, because that is a heavy factor. Day to day, if you're a renter or whatever, like who cares if your score is 790 or 820 or 780 or 830. Once you get into like the excellent category, the number itself doesn't really matter.
Yeah, those are good points.
All these credit cards, often they come with like, they tell you what your credit score is. They send you alerts. It's going up. Yep. It's going down. Like I just delete them. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter in my day-to-day life. It's never been like you are denied a credit card because your score was too low. Once you get into the excellent category, the number itself doesn't matter.
Right. What about any hacks or credit card combos that would be useful for business travelers or families? Are there any underrated hacks that people usually don't think about when trying to play the credit card point game?
Yeah, I think, the portal one is like one that I always have to remind people of, like always transfer your points. Use websites like seats.aero or point.me to figure out your flight in advance of transferring, because those websites will tell you what points. Like seats.aero is good for a wide range of stuff, and point.me it's good for like a specific day and where you should transfer points from. Where seats.aero will just say like, this flight is 60,000 points on Air France. So use them both, but they're a good way to figure out where you should transfer points, so that you don't transfer them in advance to a company that you are not going to find availability on, right? Like
Yeah.
you can just get in the habit of like, oh, I always transfer points to United, so I'm just going to keep doing that. I think another thing people need to think about is like taxes and fees. They all have taxes and fees. So you just got to, but usually the higher the fees, the lower the points needed. And so it's not something to think about too. Like, do you want to save more in points? Or do you want to save more in cash? What other things can I think about where mistakes people make? Honestly, it's really about flexibility. A lot of people say, I can never find something from Austin to Japan, right? I'm like, well, try searching a different airport, Houston or Dallas, or Chicago. You might have to transfer. You use points for that original transfer to that main city and then take it. But because a lot of times that there is not availability when you add in your home airport, but if you add in an airport around you, you might find availability.
Right. Are there any other common questions you get when it comes to credit card hacking or redeeming points for max value?
Those are the big ones. I mean, you got to be flexible. I mean, my friend Nick is always like, well, there's never seats when I want it. And I'm like, okay, well, a day on either end, might make a huge difference. But that's like with regular flights too. But I think if you're booking on points and you're doing like a bucket list activity where you want to like really fly first class or do an overwater bungalow or something like super luxurious and insane, you just have to like plan your trip around when the points are available.
Yeah. Have that flexibility.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's end with my 3-question fire round. The first is a favorite piece of media you've consumed recently, whether that's been a podcast, a YouTube video, anything.
I read an article on Time Out about the travel writer Joe Cummings, who I know. He was the first person to do a guidebook to Thailand for Lonely Planet back in like 1982. And he was just really talking about the evolution of tourism in the country, as well as travel writing and just, he's OG.
Yeah.
So that was, as a travel writer myself, I found that really interesting.
That is interesting. I'll have to look that up. Second question, we share a love of food, just went to our friend's sushi place, have been to Japan together and eating incredible food there. But what would you say is one of your top restaurants? It's a tough one.
Let's go with...
Where is that?
Paris, France.
Ooh.
Ledittvin with D.
Yum. Last question. What is your favorite way to stay up to date on the news?
I use Threads a lot. And so that's a good way for me to stay updated and just see not only media I like, but media I might not consume, Fox News or Newsmax or Global Affairs. So I follow a bunch of journalists on Threads and read their stories.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Why and how should people reach out to you?
Why? Because I'm awesome and you travel with me. So I walk the walk and talk the talk, or whatever that saying is. But yeah, I mean, if you want to learn how to travel on a budget, check out my website, nomadicmatt.com. I'm also on social media at Nomadic Matt. And I will give you the tips and tricks to save money on traveling while still doing cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. Traveling the world is something we're both passionate about. So I feel like a lot of people don't travel is because they think that it's too expensive. And so I think your mission is really important to show people that you can actually travel the world and do it in a respectable way to your bank account. So thank you for your time today and helping in that mission. Until next time, adios.
Adios, amigo. Amiga. Adios, amiga.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you found any value and want to support the podcast, I would be forever grateful if you texted someone the link. You can say that you have a podcast episode that may be interesting for them. Also, if you have questions or topics you want covered, please don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram. Remember that every step makes a difference. I hope that you continue to learn how to get richer and stay that way.